What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel as you tune in and you check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on a recent subject that's been going around lately, and that is about I think they call it unethical, um, like flopping and and foul baiting and stuff like that, right? And it's getting to the point now that even NBA players are tired and calling out other NBA players for the flopping and foul baiting and those things, right? And so now part of the blame, I want to blame part of it on the league and the referees for allowing this to go on. And I remember back in the day where superstar basketball players did get calls, like like Michael Jordan got the calls, Kobe Bryant got the calls, who else? I mean, Magic and Bird, they got the calls, right? That sometimes other basketball players didn't get. But the thought behind that was that these guys were, by the time they were veteran basketball players, they had earned that, like the benefit of the doubt. Whereas though the referee was like, okay, people are going to compete harder and foul these guys. And even Shaq was in the same boat, right? They're going to compete harder and foul these guys to take away some of the advantage that these dominant basketball players had. You know, sometimes the only way you could stop somebody like Michael Jordan or Larry Bird was to cheat or grab his jersey, and then so Michael Jordan or Larry Bird, would just bring that to the referee's attention some kind of way. But for the most part, with those guys back in the day, it wasn't about flopping. They just wanted to play hard, and they had a term called, they like played through the foul. You had to really hit one of those guys hard, which back in those days you got hit hard. So wasn't no flopping. You know, it wasn't no selling the they didn't really sell the fouls like these guys are doing today, like superstar players are doing today. Not only superstar basketball players, but you got guys who are like almost everybody is doing it, right? And it's getting to the point where it's taken from the quality of basketball. You have sometimes you'll have like a guy like Luka Doncic. He'll get fouled or he'll think he was fouled on one end, and then he'll stay down there, arguing with the ref. Where now the opposition has an advantage going back down the other end because he's on one end crying for a foul. Now, if you had done that back in the day and you crying for a foul on one end, like, the coach and all your teammates will be upset with you because now you're giving, not only did you flop, you giving up an easy basket at the other end. So that was just, it was frowned on, right? It was frowned on if you did stuff like that. But now it's commonplace, and you have guys looking for the fouls so they can get to the free throw line and and stat pads. And one of the podcasts that was talking about it was Scap Attack, right? And he brought up Jaylen Brown, who is, who's tired of it, and also Victor Wembanyama. And I think that with these two guys coming out, two of the best basketball players, in the league, I think it's a good sign for the league when you had these guys, excuse me, when you had these guys speaking up and speaking against these fouls. So let me play the audio from Scap Attack, then come back and give some of my input.
Well, is there an unethical hoops epidemic sweeping the NBA? According to some marquee star players in the league today, the answer is a resounding yes. But just what exactly is unethical hoops, you might be wondering. Well, it refers to a style of basketball that relies on manipulating officials through foul baiting, excessive flopping, and general hoops grifting to score your baskets rather than relying on traditional basketball skills in your metaphorical bag. And general fans and pundits have acknowledged this as a pervasive issue for years, But again, as of late, it isn't just fans and it isn't just average players complaining about this or taking shots at certain other players and teams. Victor Wembanyama took a perceived shot at the Thunder earlier this year following an emotionally charged win against the defending world champions in the Emirates Cup in-season tournament semifinal game, when he called his Spurs team pure and ethical.
I have no doubt, of course, but I'm just glad to be a part of something that's growing to be so beautiful and so pure and ethical basketball, you know.
That in
So, and then, so like when you have a guy like Victor Wembanyama saying that, right? Like his statement just, to me, just shows how much how much he likes and loves basketball. And so he wants basketball to be played the right way. And that's good moving forward for the future of basketball. You know, and that's why I think basketball, and you know, and I said in previous videos that I think basketball, professional basketball, is on its way back when you have guys at the top who have this mindset about basketball and the way it should be played.
Reference to the perceived foul baiting tactics of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And it isn't just Wembanyama either. Jaylen Brown also recently called out this tactic by the reigning league MVP following a 2-point loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
I don't know, maybe it all works in the end, but, you know, I don't foul bait. I'm not looking to, you know, flop or anything like that, but it's almost like you got to. It's almost like, because there's a couple of plays in the fourth quarter where I feel like I drove strong, went up strong, and I didn't get the benefit of the doubt. But maybe if I would have flopped, maybe I would have been able to sell that call. And those decide games. We commend players for playing the game the right way, but we give the benefit to those who, you know, who necessarily are trying to manipulate the game into their advantage. I just don't think it's basketball. Like, let's just play basketball. All the foul baiting, I think it's whatever for me.
And look, while
all right, so like Jaylen Brown, right? He even, you know, now I never really pay any attention to Shai Gilgeous. You know, I didn't see, but I guess he is. You know, if you have two of the best basketball players, Jaylen Brown and Victor Wembanyama, complain about the Thunder, right? OKC Thunder. So evidently there's an issue with them. Like I said, these guys, like the best basketball players, most of the best basketball players in the league, they're not going to do this because they realize that you put yourself and your team at a disadvantage. You know, if you flop on a play and then somebody get an easy basket, then, you know, that's, you know, it's just not basketball. And I'm glad that these guys are coming, you know, they complaining about it and they bringing it to everybody's attention.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is currently leading the NBA in total free throws made and free throws made per game. He is actually not leading the NBA in free throws attempted overall or free throws attempted per game. Look, he is second in both of those metrics, second behind only Luka Doncic. More on him in a moment. But look, everybody has been complaining about the Oklahoma City Thunder for basically the last 2 years. Perhaps you could say it's all just sour grapes or jealousy because the Thunder are the best team in the NBA. They won the NBA championship last year. They have the best record in the NBA this year, and they are pretty hefty favorites to defend that title this season. But many around the league would have you know that that is in no small part because of what this team gets away with. Both what Shai gets away with on the offensive end, but what the Oklahoma City Thunder get away with on the defensive end. That is the real issue with this team, not necessarily all of the calls Shai Gilgeous-Alexander does get, because look, he is a star player. He led the league in scoring last year. He was the league MVP. He was the finals MVP last year and won an NBA championship. And players of his caliber with his resume historically do get a pretty favorable whistle by the officials. The problem is, while you could barely touch SGA on that end of the floor, the Oklahoma City Thunder deploy a defensive strategy which borders primarily on physical assault as they maul and manhandle you all over the floor on that end. So there.
Yeah, and see, I think it has to go both ways. You know, if you allow the team to play physical at the defensive end, then also you gotta allow their opponent to play physical with them at the other end of the court, and that'll be fair. Like I said from the beginning, superstar basketball players have always gotten they get calls and they get the benefit of the doubt. But those guys back in the days never flop. Like you never seen Shaq flop when Shaq was so big and so strong that he couldn't. I don't know if Shaq could even fake a foul because you had to really hit Shaq in order to move him because he's 7 feet tall, a little bit over 7 feet tall, and 300 and something pounds. So you really had to, and so those guys didn't really flop like that, and it just wasn't part of the game. It was understood that the guys who got the call, like I said, the superstars like Bird and Magic and all those guys, Isaiah Thomas, those guys got fouled, but they also they got fouled hard and they earned those fouls, and they wasn't, they was just trying to play through hard fouls and protect themselves. This is not the same as it was back in the day, man. And I'm glad that you got guys like Victor Wembanyama and you have guys like Jaylen Brown just speaking out against it. Basketball, in my opinion, is NBA basketball is on its way back. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm gonna check y'all out in the next video. Peace.